And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Okay, for tomorrow morning, we've got IFR up along the Arctic coast. Lower conditions here over the western interior with IFR from southern Kobuk Valley on down across the Kuskokwim Valley to western Cook Inlet, another batch here in the Gulf of Alaska, and out west, IFR for the eastern Aleutians, all the way out to about Kiska Island. VFR, eastern interior, and some VFR now, Bristol Bay, southern Kuskokwim Valley down to Kodiak, and marginal for the southeast coast. For the day, or for Thursday afternoon, still marginal VFR for the southeast coast, Gulf of Alaska, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast areas. IFR here, western Cook Inlet, otherwise Kenai Peninsula, Matanuska Valley, marginal VFR. VFR, eastern Alaska range. IFR for the Susitna Valley, northwestward here into the northwest part of the state, linking up with IFR along the North Slope and Arctic coast, and eastward there, Upper Yukon Valley, marginal VFR, Bering Sea, and the Aleutians. And for Friday morning, marginal VFR coming along the east side of Kodiak Island, up across the Barren Islands, Kenai Peninsula, and up into possibly the Matanuska Valley, but mostly along the coast range here. IFR, Prince William Sound, North Gulf Coast, out in the Gulf, and for the southeast coast, marginal VFR. VFR Eastern Interior, VFR Southwest Interior to Bristol Bay, marginal IFR up here over the northwest part of the state, Seward Peninsula, right on up across the western Brooks Range and the Arctic coast, and again staying marginal out over the Bering Sea and Aleutians. And for Friday afternoon, IFR for the North Gulf Coast here, right up along the coastline, but in across all the Panhandle for the afternoon hours, and VFR, Bristol Bay, up along the Alaska Range here into the Tanana Valley, 40-mile country. Again, VFR right up to the eastern Brooks Range. Marginal VFR out here over the Bering Sea, and then a break for the central Aleutians, then some more IFR slipping into the southwestern Bering Sea. Passes Anatuvik and Anigan for Thursday look occasionally marginal for both passes there in the Brooks Range. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, same forecast for rainy, IFR. Windy, marginal VFR. Isabel, marginal VFR, becoming VFR during the day, same forecast for Mentasta. Tanita, marginal VFR the entire day Thursday. Portage, IFR early, becoming marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, marginal VFR. Freezing levels 2,000 feet up into the eastern interior here. Otherwise, about 4,000 feet across the southeast coast, and 2,000 to 4,000 feet over the central Aleutians. Moving on to icing. Got some considerable moderate rime icing just exiting on Alaska Island there as it heads eastward, and then widespread area of icing here over the interior areas, especially along the Arctic coast into the North Slope, mostly considerable moderate rime icing up there, and then diminishing icing down across the southeast coast. And the jet stream here, we've got an upper level low at 33,000 feet, kind of cutting across the southern Panhandle, and a trough across southern Alaska here into the Bering Sea. North of that trough, east-southeast winds 70 to 85 knots. South of that trough, the main jet well south of, or just south of the Aleutians, and then heading off to the east and southeast. At 9,000 feet, couple of lows here, one there over the northern Bering Sea, another one over the southwest part of the state, actually over the Kuskokwim Valley. South wind 65 knots, about 50 knots heading into the eastern Brooks Range there. Strongest winds mostly south of the Aleutians there, but about 60 to 65 knots out west. Southwest winds in toward the southeast coast at about 35 to 40 knots, and south to southeast 45 to 50 knots, but southerlies up to 65 knots here right across the Copper River Basin and the eastern Alaskan Range. 3,000 feet, about 40 knots here coming up into western Prince William Sound, the Talkeetnas. Otherwise lighter over the interior here, but those strong easterlies continuing up along the Arctic coast up to 40 knots there, 55 knots as you get across the Chukchi Sea, and lighter southwest winds in toward the Panhandle. Out west here, we've got north-northwesterlies, 40 to 50 knots. Turbulence. Look for moderate turbulence for the eastern Aleutians, as well as areas from about Adak westward to Shimei and Attu. Up to the north, with those winds, look for surface 6,000 feet, moderate turbulence there, especially into the western Brooks Range in the northwest coast. Southern Alaska from Kodiak Island up along the North Gulf Coast into the Copper River Basin, and pretty bumpy conditions for the Panhandle as well.